Hi. Have you recently sensed the sudden growth in the number of horror comedy movies compared to the normal horror genre in Indian filmmaking industry? If your answer is yes, you are not alone, dude. I too believe it's just the regional cinema that's keeping the flames going for the horror genre. If one hurls their memory for a moment, they'll definitely remember cult classic horror comedies like Chandramukhi and Bhool Bhulaiya. But the number of such movies were way too low compared to the movies made in proper horror genre. Let me remind you, Bollywood has constantly tried to nail the horror genre and failed miserably again and again. While Tumbad and 13B are some exceptions with great storylines, majority of horror movies made in India were average or simply bad to their core. Although time and again people have tried to save the horror genre, and some movies like Bulbul and Bari were successful up to some extent but were not able to create the craze that they could have. Compared to the horror movies that existed in Bollywood, I still think both the movies deserve far better. But recently, precisely after the success of Stree and the establishment of Maddox Horror Comedy Universe, the number of such horror comedy movies has far surpassed that it was some years ago. Every producer today somehow trusts a horror comedy movie more than a pure horror. Does that mean Indian audience don't like horror? Of course not. Success of recent foreign movies like Conjuring the Last Ride, Weapons or Bring Her Back are simple answers showing the desperacy of Indian audience for the horror movies. Regional movies like Vash Level 2 dominating the box office is the best example that good content will definitely attract audience to the theatre. So what I think currently the problem with Bollywood is simply their inability to nail a good horror combination. Bollywood, since a very long time now, has constantly tried to combine horror with romance, erotica, and heroism, which, in my opinion, just doesn't work with the horror genre. There are plenty of examples showing the failure of such combinations, and even the movies that gain success at the box office with this combination are simply not because of the horror aspect of the movie. Although there are some good to average movies like 1920 Evil Returns, Darna Zaruri Hai, Darna Mana Hai, Shapil. All these are before 2010, and the number of such decent horror has far decreased in the last 15 years. And this is where, in the recent years, the regional cinema shines. Be it Gujarati cinema with their Vash series, Marathi cinema with Jaran, Assamese movie with Amish, Tamil cinema with Andagaram, or Malayalam cinema with Bhutakalam. With their brilliant writing and focus on horror elements, these movies have perfectly nailed the secret to a good horror movie. Bollywood can easily learn how not every horror movie has to have a love story connected to it. Recent Hollywood release Weapons and Indian movie Vash Level 2 both have same concept, and while Weapons easily generates higher craze because of its global release, I still feel Vash was a lot deeper and deserved the same attention on the global market. I mean, of course the movie Weapon had much violence and gore. Still, stakes were definitely higher in Vash. The man was literally unaliving all its victims whenever he liked. That was not the case in Weapons. The remake of the original movie Vash, Shaitan was really toned down, where I understand they are trying to be responsible and were trying to make it less traumatizing for all age groups. It still just takes the essence of a horror movie. And for those that are frustrated with the horror romance genre, you should definitely try the movie Amish. With no supernatural elements in it, it carries this very unsettling dark story that just drags the horror through your heart. The Marathi movie Jaran is a special combination of psychological and natural horror. With its very well written, twisted plot, no one can predict what turns the story is going to take. It ends with an open ending that just makes you question everything you saw. The Tamil movie Andagaram is a really well written, complex layered story where a red telephone is acting as a medium to talk to supernatural beings.
कोई चमन झिंगा का फोन है
The screenplay the movie follows is very complex, yet very well written. Although the climax did not land very well for me, it still is a very good movie to watch. And most of all, I feel the Malayalam cinema is thriving the most with horror genre. With old school horror movies like Bhutakalam, they really show how it's done. For the most part of the movie, it does not have any jump scares or cringe make-up face. In fact, for the most part, they don't even show you a ghost until the very climax. The horror is just poured enough to make you feel fear. Then, for the master of them all, comes the movie Brahma Yugam. For me, to put it in a single sentence, if you like Tumbad, you will definitely like Brahma Yugam. Trust me, the movie is just pure cinema. The performances are epic, cinematography is epic, background music, the set, the lighting, everything feels so epic. Anyone to take their eyes off. One simply falls in love how the story unfolds. Now, listening about all these serious horror movies, I don't want you to misunderstand that regional cinema do not have any horror comedy now. They are making a name for themselves in this genre as well. Recent releases like Romancham from Malayalam industry, Su from So from Kannada industry, and Bo Butu Hutta from Odia industry have won the hearts of their respective audiences. Romancham, that explores the story of a group of friends living in a house together where they use a Ouija board to call a spirit that they couldn't send back, makes the perfect plot for a horror comedy movie. The movie Su from So, which does not even have a ghost in the movie, but a self-created situation for the lead that forms the basic plot of the movie. Bo Butu Hutta from the Odia industry became the highest grosser for the industry, has most horror out of the three I mentioned earlier. The movie follows the story of a boy named Guttu, whose mother is an exorcist, and he gets possessed by a spirit, and a funny yet horror story unfolds. It really aches my heart how this movie did not get the pan-India recognition that it deserved. You know, the only lacking I feel from these movies are that all these movies do not have the kind of budget that mainstream movies have. Take it for example, Su from So or Bo Butu Hutta. One could evidently feel the technical errors of the movie, like noticeable wire work or generic camera work, or be it the VFX issues. All this is majorly due to their lower budgets. I wonder how good these movies would be when their budget grows like that of a Bollywood movie. Remake horror movies like Shaitan and Chori with higher budget as well as higher audience reach somehow loses their raw, darker horror vibe as it is in case of their respective originals. Mark my words. Knowing how keen the Indian audience is about an authentic horror movie, once the Bollywood nails one good horror movie, the demand for such movies will skyrocket, immediately catching the trends. So that's all for today, guys. If you like this video, consider giving it a thumbs up and leave a comment telling me what you think should be discussed on this channel. And please press the subscribe button to help me grow this channel and shoot more interesting content your way.